Some finishers get copied as a tribute, while others get blatantly stolen. In this video, we'll be looking at the times WWE wrestlers stole finishers, starting with the time AJ Styles got ripped off. Before coming to the WWE, Styles built his legacy in TNA and on the indies around his innovative mix of high-flying moves and a lethal finisher known as the Styles Clash.
Clash! Hit it! Roll through! Could he hit the Clash again? AJ Styles, there it is!
It was one of the most unique finishing moves in the business, and move that could cause serious injuries if not executed properly. So, when The Undertaker's wife, Michelle McCool, started using an identical move renamed the Faith Breaker, fans immediately clocked it. WWE even acknowledged it and addressed the elephant in the room when the Phenom feuded with the Phenomenal One in 2020, needling Styles that McCool did his own finisher better than he did. But fans who watched wrestling during the late 2000s will tell you that AJ's execution of the move looked explosive and phenomenal, while McCool's version often felt awkward. AJ built the Clash into a career-defining signature across multiple promotions, while McCool's version was just a cheap copy borrowed wholesale without the build-up or mythology behind it. But speaking of finishers that turned into legacies, few moves have been passed around, argued over, and blessed by as many people as the Cutter, or more popularly known as the RKO. Diamond Dallas Page popularized the Diamond Cutter in the 90s, a move so unpredictable and versatile, he could hit it from literally anywhere.
Scary. No, it's Diamond Cutter! Here he goes!
It made him a main event player in WCW and one of the most inventive finishers in wrestling history. When a young Randy Orton needed a new finisher early in his career, it was Johnny Ace, the man behind the original Ace Crusher, who suggested he try a similar cutter variation. DDP gave his blessing without hesitation, and the rest is history. The RKO became one of the most well-known moves in wrestling history, and even outside of it. DDP has spoken warmly about the RKO's success ever since, never bitter about the connection. Orton took the DNA of the Diamond Cutter and built something that outlived and outgrew the original in mainstream culture. But from an amicable handoff to a full beast mode rivalry, let's talk about the less-known origins of John Cena's attitude adjustment. Cena arrived on the main roster in 2002 as a generic rookie from OVW and quickly got lost in the shuffle. Around the same time, a force of nature named Brock Lesnar debuted with the F5, a move that perfectly captured his identity as a genetic freak who could toss 300-pound men with ease.
No! Wow! Lesnar get there! Oh, the damn Paul Heyman! Oh, no! F5, man!
Paired with his size and amateur wrestling credentials, the F5 made Lesnar an instant top-of-the-card threat. By this time, Cena, who had now adopted an edgy rapper persona, got into a feud with Lesnar and began using a near-identical fireman's carry variation called the FU, mocking Lesnar's F5. Once WWE went PG, the FU got renamed to the Attitude Adjustment and went on to become one of the most recognized finishers in wrestling history. But while Cena's FU was born out of a kayfabe rivalry, not every finisher dispute cooled down so easily, especially when Twitter got involved. Kurt Angle made the ankle lock one of the most feared submissions in wrestling, snapping it on with the legitimacy of an actual Olympic gold medalist.
He countered! Ankle lock! That's it! Ankle lock! He's got ankle lock! He got it down! Never give up!
It became his signature tap-out weapon throughout his WWE run, a move that he himself borrowed from Ken Shamrock. Years later, Jack Swagger began using a version of the hold renamed the Patriot Lock as part of his All-American American gimmick. Angle wasn't thrilled, and when Randy Orton also began using an angle slam variation around the same period, Kurt vented in a since-deleted series of tweets before claiming his account had been hacked, a claim almost nobody believed. Angle later cooled off considerably, even admitting the frustration was overblown once he thought about it. Swagger's wrestling run never reached the heights his amateur credentials suggested it should, and the Patriot Lock never carried the same weight or credibility the original ankle lock had. Angle's version remained the gold standard, while Swagger's take became a footnote in a career that never fully reached its potential. But if Twitter beef was Kurt Angle's way of handling a stolen finisher, Steve Austin took the complete opposite approach, and it turned into one of the most respectful handoffs in wrestling history. Stone Cold made the Stunner one of the most iconic finishers ever. Years later, John Cena briefly experimented with a springboard version of the Stunner, which Austin publicly criticized, saying it diluted the move's impact. But when Kevin Owens started using a Stunner of his own as a finisher, not only did Austin approve, he actively coached Owens on the mechanics of the Stunner, breaking down technique and positioning like a proud mentor. The blessing gave Owens instant credibility, and he's used the Stunner ever since, treated by fans as a worthy continuation rather than a copy. But going from a blessed passing of the torch to one of the most iconic submissions in wrestling, we have to talk about the Sharpshooter and the Scorpion Deathlock. Bret Hart built his excellence of execution reputation around his unmatched technical wrestling skills and a flawless sharpshooter.
He's going on! Oh, yeah, the sharpshooter! He's got it! He's got him!
But what complicates the story is that WCW star Sting actually began using his Scorpion Deathlock, essentially the same hold, before Hart popularized his own version, having seen it performed in Japan.
The turnbuckle and it put the pressure in it. Shut down on him. Check it out. His with his Scorpion Deathlock. And Hogan's in the go. Stinson. He's got it on.
Rather than turning into a dispute, the two Hall of Famers have discussed the connection with mutual respect for years, both acknowledging the overlap without any bitterness. Hart's version became the more universally recognized name, while Sting's Scorpion Deathlock remained a beloved staple of his own legendary career. Neither man's legacy suffered for it. If anything, the shared history became a charming connection. However, not every borrowed move stayed so friendly. Some turned into on-screen rivalries. The Rock debuted the Rock Bottom years before Booker T arrived in WWE. When Booker T began hitting an almost identical slam called the Bookend, fans immediately noticed the resemblance, especially once Booker and The Rock feuded directly, making the comparison impossible to ignore. Booker eventually shifted primarily to the scissors kick as his finisher, keeping the Bookend as a secondary move.
Look at Booker T with a shot. Here we go. Here comes Booker T with a big fist to win this match. King with Booker T. Booker T.
Years later, Booker jokingly turned the tables in an interview, claiming The Rock had actually stolen the move, along with several of his catchphrases, from him. The Rock Bottom remained one of the most recognizable finishers of its era, cemented by Rock's Hollywood-level fame. Booker's Bookend never escaped its shadow, but the rivalry itself and Booker's cheeky retelling of it became a beloved piece of wrestling folklore rather than a bitter dispute. But going from an Attitude-era rivalry to a more modern one rooted across oceans, let's look at the complex history of the Go to Sleep. Kenta, now known internationally as Hideo Itami, innovated the GTS as one of the most devastating finishers in Japanese wrestling.
Go to Summers! Go to sleep!
Then, a young CM Punk saw the move, fell in love with it, and adopted it as his own finisher early in his independent career, well before arriving in WWE. Punk has never hidden the influence, but Kenta's response hasn't been very positive. While Punk went on to become a main event star in the WWE, Itami's run never reached the same heights, hampered by injuries and booking that never fully utilized him. Over the years, the GTS became globally synonymous with Punk thanks to his megastardom and 434-day title run. While Kenta's version remained more of a cult favorite among hardcore fans who knew where it truly came from. Continuing that same Kenta connection, his influence on WWE didn't stop at just one finisher. Kenta's running knee strike became one of his most recognizable moves in Japan. Daniel Bryan, a former rival of Kenta and a longtime student of Japanese strong-style wrestling, incorporated a nearly identical running knee into his own arsenal, eventually turning it into his primary finisher during his generational run in 2013.
Daniel Bryan, oh, the knee! Oh, Bryan with the knee! Bryan, the running knee! Oh! And now lined up for the running knee!
Bryan has been open about drawing from Japanese wrestlers throughout his career, and the Busaiku knee became inseparable from his underdog run. However, if we're talking about WWE champions who stole moves, we simply can't exclude the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes. Cody has a self-imposed rule where if he wrestles you 5 times or more, he's gonna borrow a move from your arsenal. And nowhere has this been more apparent than the Cody Cutter.
Cody off the second rope. Cody on the other side. Cody Cutter! Off the second rope again.
While most fans would argue that the Cody Cutter is a direct tribute to Randy Orton's RKO, its actual inspiration is Will Ospreay's Os Cutter that cemented the aerial assassin as one of the biggest stars on the indie scene.
Oh, the Frankenstein negated!
Rather than controversy, the connection became an example of Cody's larger reputation as one of wrestling's most self-aware students who never hides his source of inspiration. But while copying finishers and signature moves is fine, some wrestlers flat out steal other wrestlers' gimmicks and build their entire career around them. So check out this video next to see the WWE wrestlers who stole gimmicks.